running a marathon is crazy.
Do you have one piece of actionable advice?
A one that people often miss.
Maybe I should listen to my own advice a little bit more.
Recipe for disaster.
Any race that hasn't gone well for me, I can put down to... Hello and welcome to the Runna Podcast. We have a very special episode today because it's the most exciting time of the year. It is marathon season. There are so many races coming up, London, Boston, and they're just the majors. There are so many around the world, and we're here to give you that race day pep talk. Think of it as your marathon guide. Ben and I are both doing London, so we'll be sharing our tips and tricks that we will also be using.
And it's not just for the marathon. A lot of what we'll talk through will be helpful if you've got an important half marathon or even those shorter race distance as well when it comes to preparing the mind and the body for that big, exciting event. Well, Anya, I was going to say, as a seasoned veteran of the marathon distance, have you lost track or do you know how many times you've ran the marathon?
It's either 14 or 15, which is a lot, I know. But I think my favourite part of that is the majority have been sub 3, which is really cool.
Wow, mental. And is that 14 or 15 marathon distances ran, or is that marathon events?
Marathon events. I've never gone the full distance if it's not in a race. No.
What about the speed project?
Oh, no, but I was only running like 3 kilometres at a time.
Oh,
I don't count that. How many have you done?
Well, I actually don't know my marathon event number, and I probably should count that. But I had to count by ranking my Strava kind of profile and saying, show me everything 42 kilometers and more, which is including Ironman runs and including ultramarathons. Yeah. But I will be running my 43rd marathon distance in London.
That's actually insane. I'm really excited for London. Shall we dive into the day before the race? So I wanted to ask you about whether we should shake out or not.
Great question. And any avid runner customers will know that we don't actually prescribe a shakeout run for everyone the day before a race. Mm-hmm. And the reason for this is there's very little training benefit to do a 5K, which is the kind of typical shakeout distance, or not to do. And therefore, we very much say, if you would like, go and do it. And in practice, what we want to be doing with reference to our running in those days and ultimately the week up to the big marathon day is making sure our mileage and our volume is much, much lower so that we're as fresh as possible to go and run our heart out. So in practice, when it is coming up to that big race day, it's Saturday the day before, we've probably done very little mileage that week. We may well have done an easy run. We may well have done some kind of taper intervals, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So we're going to be relatively fresh for the next day, irrespective of whether we do this kind of extra 5K run. Mm-hmm. So what we want to do is work out whether we're the kind of person who wants to relax, get off our feet, and we're going to be avoiding that anxiety that comes the day before by seeing your friends, checking into a hotel, traveling, whatever it's going to be. And as a result, you're fine. But it may well be the case that you've done your traveling or you're in your home city and you're a bit itchy feet and you want to get out, you want to do something. Mm-hmm. And simply by going out to do as easy as possible, something like a 5 kilometer can be a great way to put your mind at ease, get the legs ticking over and moving without putting any fatigue into the body. Yeah. And I think the key thing is you're going to get no training benefit from doing a shakeout. But hopefully if we keep it super easy and you're feeling well and doing all of these right things the day and the days before the race, should mean that you also get no detriment to the race. What about you, Anya? Do you prefer to, or what do you like to do the day before?
Ideally, I'd actually probably shake out like 2 days before, but with travel, it often happens the day before. But I think especially after long haul travel, I quite like to shake out my legs just because they're feeling like heavy from like being stationary for hours. So that's the only reason I really do it.
Yeah, and I guess what I would definitely advise to anyone, irrespective of whether you choose to do a shakeout or not, can also be doing maybe like a 10-15 minute kind of stretch routine, just like making sure that any of your tight problem areas you're working into, particularly loosening up your body if you've been sat still on a plane for hours, and just making sure that your body's feeling nice and limber, ready for a good night's sleep. And additionally to that, hopefully you've got lots of time to kill because you've got your bib, you've done all of this kind of pre-race admin out the way, and as a result, maybe that gives you enough time for a bath or any of these kind of extra things that maybe you don't actually get to enjoy and don't get time for in the normal flow of training. And in a way, it can be quite a nice way to treat yourself and to do those extra little 1%, which even if they don't have meaningful physical benefit, knowing that you've kind of like, the way I think about it is the way that you've done all of those extra marginal gains means that you can know that you stand on the start line tomorrow and that there is absolutely nothing that will get in your way. And it then is just a question of you doing the run that your training deserves.
Yeah, for sure.
Any things that you like to do on that day before then if you've done your shakeout 2 days before?
I like to journal, and I don't think this is like new news for anyone at home, but I write down all the reasons why I think this race is going to go really well, whilst I am like feeling confident, have a sound mind, because inevitably on the start line, I'm going to be thinking, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And that's just the adrenaline, just the nerves, and that's totally normal. But it's really helpful for me to think back to what I wrote down in my journal about all the reasons it's going to go well. And that just calms me down a little bit.
Nice. And then when it comes to fueling on day T-1, are you going out for a nice big fancy dinner? Are you having microwavable rice in a hotel room? What would be your pre-race dinner?
Yeah, so there's obviously lots of talk about carb loading, and it's a really important factor for the marathon. You want to increase those glycogen stores so you have so much energy and carbohydrate availability for the race. And that should obviously start days before, not just the night before the race. But for dinner, I have the most simple high carb meal. It is boring, it is bland, but it will be predominantly rice based because it's a really easily digestible, simple carb. I try to avoid too much fiber because it sits in your stomach a bit and it's harder to digest. The same with protein. Avoid the vegetables. Yeah, really boring. What do you go for?
And in practice, are you doing that in a hotel room, at home, or at a restaurant?
Yeah, at home or in the hotel room. You can't eat packet rice without cooking it, and that is what I did before my last race. But yeah, I actually love the carb load. Obviously, it's a lot of people's favourite part, but the rule of thumb is like 8 to 10 to 12 grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of body weight, which is a lot, but there are simple ways you can do it.
Nice. Yeah. Well, for me, I normally end up going away to do a race, or for me, in practice for London, I'll have a few friends who are doing it too, and kind of, as a result, normally want to go out for a dinner. So I'll always go for either a pasta or a pizza, find an Italian. And then also just in terms of what seems to work and agree with me, I'll avoid a overly sugary dessert, ice cream, with a view that those things are probably less likely to sit well for me, knowing that I can look forward to them afterwards. And I'll normally go for 2 mains as a way to make sure that I'm feeling well fueled, but at the same time, it's not the case of needing to eat until you feel sick.
Yeah.
You know, we should be making sure that we're eating well, but we're not trying to stuff ourselves full. So sometimes people hear carb loading and think we need to eat absolutely as much as possible so we feel that we're just full to the brim. Very much not the case. We just want to be eating well and making sure that we're probably slightly dialing up the proportion of carbs within those meals and dialing down those elements of our diet that take longer to digest, like a steak, like those fibrous foods, and like those vegetables.
So now you're carb loaded. The next thing I would think about is preparation for race day in terms of getting everything ready. So laying out your kit the night before. Is there anything specific you like to think about?
Well, for me, it really is the case of just going through that list of everything that you could possibly need. But in practice, it's actually not that complicated. We need to know what you're going to wear, and to make sure that you know the exact pair of socks you're going to wear. Make sure that you know there are a left and a right. Like, these little things are the bits you want to get right. And we've heard stories, and I can't remember who told us now, but someone got ready for their marathon with 2 right shoes.
I was literally thinking
so just go through meticulously, get a left and a right sock out, put it in your left and your right shoe. Like my way to think about work up my body. What am I going to wear? Am I wearing shorts with a liner, or am I wearing pants and shorts? Do you lay that out? Then am I wearing a tank top? Am I wearing a shirt? Let's pin it in with reference to our bib. Make sure that we've got 4 pins. Do we need to tear off the bag label? If so, let's put that on our bag. During working up, am I wearing my arm strap? Is it charged for my heart rate? Is my Garmin watch charged? I'll keep working my way up. Am I wearing like a balaclava? Probably not, because it's a spring, but sometimes I'll wear doing a headband, okay? Or am I wearing sunglasses? Am I wearing a cap?
Yeah.
And then once you've kind of done that, you've done all your kit, and then you've hopefully put the right things on charge. And then there's also what you need to bring to the start, which is your gels. Any snacks or food that you want to have while you're traveling to the start. And a one that people often miss, because we probably don't carry it when running, would be our like hydration. So we probably will leave our hotel or our house and travel to the start, and it might take an hour or two, and then we're going to be kind of fanning around at the start, queuing and all of this stuff that in reality you want to be drinking a little bit over that time. So bring something in a bottle that you can probably chuck away. So bringing that. And then we also want to think about layers. So you may well be going down the route of a bag drop, and you can kind of have access to your layers and kind of putting them into your bag drop 20-30 minutes before, and knowing that you'll just be a little bit cold on the start line. Or you're going to wear an old hoodie that you can donate away, or making some clothes out of a bin liner. Think through that as well. And just like I said, with reference to hydrating in that time window before setting off and starting, do we want to be taking on more fuel? And so for me, I'll have kind of like a bar type food that's kind of easy to digest but solid up until the start, with an electrolyte drink in that time window, with a view that then I'll have my first gel as I'm on the start line with 5 minutes to go, and then I'll have gels for me every 7 kilometers.
Yeah, I think it's important to plan when you're having those gels, so you know exactly how many gels to have. Even like giving a bottle to family or friends, or a spare gel that you might be able to pick up on course. That's really good. And
anything I missed in terms of like your going to bed, race day prep of everything you're bringing? The only thing I would do personally on top of that is I have a list on my phone of the things for the morning of, and like it will be meticulous, but it'll be like, take my Garmin watch off charge, like the literal checklist, and it's going to be like 3 or 4 things, with a view that you have your pile of your stuff, you've got your gels probably in the pockets ready to go, but then it's like you don't want to set off out the door and forget to put on your watch or whatever it's going to be. I guess charging headphones, but definitely look at race rules, because sometimes they're definitely discouraged or not allowed. I think back to that race we did in New York, where people were so cold on the start line that they were lying under leaves to keep themselves warm. This was actually mental. So Anya and I were checking into the start of New York Marathon 2024 together, of which like the entrance for us was going through this kind of like school playground, basically. And we were getting there well in advance, I think like more than 2 hours before we were meant to be starting. And there were people who were there even before us, and they were kind of laying against trees where they had buried themselves in leaves up to their necks, and it looked like a comedy scene. And it's so annoyingly, I didn't have my phone because I had checked it in, that I couldn't take a photo of it because it was hard to believe how ridiculous it was. And then we looked at each other and we were like, well, we're going to have to bury ourselves in some leaves too. It was ridiculous. I think it was actually harder waiting for 2 hours for the start in the cold. It was like 2 degrees or something than elements of the race.
Yeah, definitely. And I think getting to that race start line is obviously also something you should plan and prepare. Make sure you know when the trains start, because often really early morning. The best way to get there normally is by public transport, because so many roads are closed. Definitely leave extra time, because it's going to be super busy. And the other thing I do on my way to the race is I bring a pen and I write down my splits on my arm. So every 5K, my goal time to go through each of those 5Ks, because sometimes you end up running slightly further than, say, a kilometre or a mile, because you can't take the shortest route all the time, or GPS errors. So I just like to manually lap my watch every 5K, and they're just little check-ins for me. But, you know, everyone paces themselves differently.
So for those who haven't experienced that before, what you're kind of saying in practice is that your watch won't exactly mirror up to the mile markers on the course. So with that in mind, it's worth knowing what mile markers will be on your course. Is it going to be a 5K? Is it going to be every mile? And then having a few that you can use as your kind of like reference point to check. There are many ways to go about doing that, and that's a great way that you can do it, and obviously go down that route if that's what works for you. Other ways that you can do it, what I'll do is simply look at the difference between my watch in the distance and where I am. So, for example, I might cross the halfway mark on my watch, and then 30 seconds go by and I see the halfway sign. Then I know I'm 30 seconds out, which means that in reality, I probably need to, over the course of the run, be 60 seconds ahead of my watch to get the time that I want, given that I've still got half to go, and I should probably assume that the same amount of GPS error will be in the second half. But at the same time, I do think for so many of us, a marathon is a marathon, and in reality, it does also feel kind of crazy to attribute the success of that to the second hands on a watch. And obviously, if we're going after a particular time that's doing a very marginal gain, so if we're going to get that, we need to be taking all of these things into account. But just like we kind of have an A goal, we want to have multiple goals and make sure that fundamentally you know that as you're running it, that you tell yourself that you are proud of the fact that you've now run 20 kilometers, you've run 30 kilometers, and if you go faster, slower, exactly the same to what you expected, running a marathon is crazy. Like the proportion of people that run a marathon in their lifetime is like super far below 1%. I think like the viral Instagram posts will say that 1% of people do the marathon, but the maths is like 0.1% of population will run a marathon. And to think that you're in the top 0. something percent of society in anything is mind-blowing. I can't say that I am in many things. And that when you're 30k round, if you're a little bit ahead of pace, a little bit behind of pace, remember all of the reasons why you're running, and hopefully that will actually get you into a good frame of mind to then have a good final 12k.
Yeah, I think being in the running space, it's just an echo chamber, but I'd like to reiterate, marathons are really hard. And that's how they're meant to be. And I think, to support what you just said, I think it's really good to have your A goal, B goal, C goal, and that they aren't always time orientated. Like maybe it is that you want to run a really strong race. Maybe you want to stick with a pacer. Maybe you want to do it without walking. Maybe you do want to run it, but just whatever it is, something you can be proud of that isn't just the time on your watch.
And there's other ways to have really productive goals that will help with your outcome as a time, as an example. For example, making sure that you run your second half better than your first. Do you mean that would be, that would get an A star from us at Runner if you can have a few seconds faster second half than first half. But to do that means that you need to be really intentional and not go too fast in the first half, which is quite a nice goal, to make sure that you do not run your first half faster than a certain time. And imagine you're running around and be calm it down, keep it steady. That will probably lead to you having a better race. And it will also be a probably more enjoyable race, because rather than having a final 10k of absolute misery and suffering as you're clawing away to the finish line, your final 10k, you can do it, and you're building up ever so slightly. And that creates this really positive mental dynamic as well.
So I think go into the race knowing what you would like to get out of it in an ideal world.
Last one before we go to sleep and we can talk about the day of. My last top tip would be to check the weather forecast. So much of a marathon is also going to be driven by this hugely big thing that's outside of our control. Is it going to be really hot, really cold? Is it going to rain? And don't just look at the race itself. Look at the afternoon. Like, you want to make sure that you're going to be able to enjoy and celebrate the rest of that day. Do you need to have some layers in your bag drop to put on, or do you need some sun cream? And so just have a look at the forecast, and that's going to mean that not only can you make sure that you're as best prepared for the race, the pre-race, but the post-race vibes as well.
And lastly from me, just set your alarms. Set more than one, set multiple, so that there is no chance that you sleep through, especially if you're on like a different time zone. I do it on my watch, I do it on my phone. So we've gone to sleep, woken up, marathon morning. It's breakfast time. Ben, what is your pre-race breakfast?
Well, I'm actually not that fussy. If I'm in England, I will have chocolate Weetabix minis with some milk and a coffee as early as I can. First thing, if I'm at home, I probably won't even get dressed or just eat, hopefully have time to go to the loo and get on with the morning. If I'm abroad and I don't want to eat a new cereal that I don't know, it agrees with me, etc. And I also don't want to have different milk. I know it sounds funny, but so then I would go for kind of a bagel with some peanut butter and jam, or maybe honey and peanut butter. Simple things that I know I eat regularly in training that agree with me, and a coffee first thing, maybe 2 coffees, so that I'm feeling great. And then between breakfast and the start, like I said earlier, during there may well be 2 hours in this time, I'll have a bottle of water with an electrolyte, and I'll probably have 1 or 2 kind of Sturker chocolate rice bars. And that's my fueling through to the start. What about you, Anya? What's your go-to breakfast?
I also love any kind of like carb rice bar, but being celiac, it's normally gluten-free oats, and they're really easy to make in hotels with kettles. You don't need any equipment. I put honey or banana in it, or even just the sugar from the hotel. Again, just simple carbs, give it enough time to digest. Hydrate, as you said, but not too much, because you don't want to like fill your bladder and need to go to the toilet, but it's a fine line. Hopefully you've been hydrating for like the days leading up as well. So you've had your breakfast, you've travelled to the start line, you've left as much time as possible to avoid any stress, you've gone to the toilet, you've used the bag drop. They're the normal motions that you go through. Is there anything else you're thinking about or doing before you get to the start line?
Do you know what? That feels like it covers most of it. At the same time as bag drop, I won't run with my phone, just to have one less thing to carry and weigh me down. So I'll probably make sure I have a clear, objective place that I'm going to meet anyone at the finish line. And you should do this even if you're going to carry your phone, because for any of the major marathons and these big events, you have so many people in one place at the finish line, often phone signal doesn't work. So have a clear roundabout, junction, meeting point that is undeniable, and that you also have thought through the logistics with reference to the people you're meeting. And in practice, some races have doing 2 hours or longer before when the first person starts and the last person starts. And imagine you're going to run faster than your friend who's starting 2 hours after you. You might finish 2.5 hours before them. So if you're a really clear point and no way to talk to each other, you don't really want to be standing around for 2.5 hours. So just think through that stuff, because it goes a long way to making sure the whole day is what you want it to be. And if someone's going to be joining you at the finish with your layers or whatever it's going to be, and you're waiting for a very long time and you can't find each other, recipe for disaster. For anyone running London or Boston, Runner will have our race hubs, so they could be a great opportunity of a place to go meet up with your loved ones, and also have some food and drinks to keep you warm.
Yeah, and I think if you are running with friends, it is worth mentioning some races like London actually have different start lines. So make sure you know which one you have and which one you're going to. Also, there is something called waves, which a lot of people will be really familiar with, but that is just like a rolling start. So everyone does start at a slightly different time. So make sure you know exactly what time you're starting, and also your supporters know exactly what time you're starting so that they can look out for you.
Nice. So you're about to stand on the start line. Would you do a shakeout jog?
So, yeah, I actually do. Again, it's so personal, just personal preference, but I do a 5-minute jog with some strides. And that's just because I'm superstitious, always done it, probably always will. What about you?
Well, in practice, for a lot of these big races, there isn't much space.
Very true.
And if you're going to be queuing for your starting pen and getting penned in like a chicken for 30 minutes to an hour, there's really not that much point going for a run an hour before, warming up a little bit and then standing still. But you also, especially when you're trying to run faster paces, but for anyone really, you don't really want to go from like 0 to running, because you're more likely to get injured. You're going to take a little bit of time to build into that race, get the heart rate up and warm up those muscles. So with that in mind, I try and strike the balance between warming up and being ready for the race without also fatiguing myself. 42 kilometers is a really long way to go. So I will probably do a few dynamic movements within the space I've got. That might be kind of bouncing around, a little bit of jog up and down within the pen if I can, or as I'm kind of like traveling through the race area, a little bit of a jog. And then in my area, I'll kind of shoo the chickens, reach down towards the ground, kind of think through just like we did as we visualize the clothes that we're going to prepare, I'll kind of think through my body parts, and I'll try and make sure that I warm up my hamstrings, bending over a few times. I'm warming up my calves, coming up onto my tiptoes, doing moving my feet around, doing a lunge or two to warm up my quads, working through my hip flexors, twisting, turning, bending over side to side, warming up through my core, shaking out my shoulders, rolling everything around, and just limbering up so that you're not going from 0 to 100, but at the same time working within the constraints that we have, and all while trying to minimize for getting tired.
Yeah. An insight into like the championship pens or the elite pens which I've been in, they are wild. Everyone is running around a circle, like it's like 100 meters around, and it's like a cyclone of people. It is crazy. It's really funny.
I got to experience a little bit of that in Valencia for the not Valencia, in Barcelona for the half marathon a few weeks ago, and I was, I think, in the first wave, but behind the elites, and it was like kind of jumping into a kind of whirlpool, whereby you're running inside the pen, and because everyone wants to run and warm themselves up, they've all started running, that you kind of jump in and then you can't get out, and you're forced in this kind of weird circular movement, and then to get out you kind of have to like jump out and then kind of like stand immediately behind the next person, and there's some people trying to run a bit faster and trying to do some like sprints in there. It is mental.
Yeah, it's so true. So one of the last things before the gun goes off is I would find GPS on your watch, as you said, phone service, GPS. There's so many people, it often takes a bit longer to find that service. So definitely prepare that early. And then you're going to be standing there. There's often a heartbeat sound. It is really scary, and you've got to control your nerves. Do you have any ways you like to keep your nerves under control?
Well, I think naturally, the more that we stand on start lines, the more we get used to it. Which is really bad, because nerves is practically the feeling of our body building adrenaline. It's brilliant to be nervous of a lion, so that when a lion chases you, you run really fast. And that's basically what's happening, is your body's like, oh my God, I've not stood on this start line thing before. All these people around me, oh my God, what am I going to do? Gun goes off, and you have this brilliant natural drug called adrenaline. It's also problematic, because if you sprint off the start line, run away from the lion, 2 kilometers in, your heart rate and your lungs catch up with you, and it all goes pear-shaped. So we want to stay calm, and we want to try and like harness that energy to utilize it all the way through the race. One of the things that works for me is by standing on more and more start lines, I'm used to it. And some races, it takes a lot longer to start than others. So, for example, Ironman triathlons, they've got to get sometimes 4,000 people in a lake, which is very dangerous. You're all swimming on top of each other, so you might be waiting for an hour. And they're playing hype up music, and everyone's clapping, and they're telling you about all the nationalities that have come to the race. It's strange. So it does get easier with practice. But I think the key to do is just to work through all of the practical things that you need to do. Find your GPS, do those warm-up movements, have a sip of your water that you're going to chuck away, take off your layers at the right time, keep an eye on the time, make sure that you're kind of progressing in the right way to where you need to be, and you will feel nervous, and before you know it, you're starting to run, and then you stay calm, you run to the pace that you should run, and you get 2K in, and you're okay, and then you get 4K in, and you're okay, and then you're thinking, oh, 3K, and I get to have my next gel, and you're in, and you're okay, and you just got to let the time pass. I don't do any magical things, crossing my toes and tying my shoelaces in a particular way. But, I mean, that is a good point. Just like find your GPS, make sure that your shoes are tied well, double knotted, not too tight, but not too loose. Do you have any superstition things that you do to settle your nerves?
I feel like this is my forte, and maybe I should listen to my own advice a little bit more. I think it is so normal to feel nervous on a start line. I like to think of any butterflies in my stomach are almost an applause for something you're about to achieve. And if you're feeling nervous, it's a good thing, because you've got nervous energy, and you just need to convert that into positive energy. Any negative thoughts are such a waste of energy, and you're going to need all you can on the race circuit. I think if you're nervous, it's because you know deep down that you are capable of something, and it means that you really care. Because if you didn't think there was an opportunity for you to like run a really good race, you wouldn't care and then you wouldn't be nervous. So deep down, you know that something really cool is possible. And so you've just got to enjoy that. I know we say it all the time, but the race really is the cherry on the top of the cake. The work is all the months of work you've put in before that. So you've just got to go and execute it, enjoy it, and have the race of your life, really.
I agree with that. I think you wouldn't get nervous if you didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a privilege that we get to go out and enjoy this day that we really care about.
Mm-hmm.
I know we always say that the race is the victory lap, it's the cherry on the cake. And it is for that training block. But hopefully it's also a insignificant milestone in a lifetime of running. And I think that, like, while it's amazing to reward ourselves and to view the marathon as this amazing achievement at the end of a big training block and reward yourself with the hard work you put into it, it's also probably quite helpful to not let it be that deep.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's one run. And hopefully it goes well, you have a happy day, and you get a time that you're proud of.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the most important thing is that it feeds the love of running for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And in reality, if it goes really badly, you'll probably have a bit of fire to do another one.
Yeah.
And if it goes really well, hopefully you'll have a bit of fire to do even better, you know? And so I think trying to view it in a positive way is the most important thing. And if building it up to be this big thing that will push you and help you from giving up when you feel the wall, then great. But if it's you're the kind of person that's feeling a bit overwhelmed by it, just remember it's just one run.
Yeah.
You know, and we all have different brains, so there isn't one way that we need to think. Yeah. So just try and explore it for yourself, and with practice, you'll probably think about them in different ways over time, and you'll probably work out the way that it feels for you.
Yeah. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Runna Podcast. Quick one from me. Please can you rate, preferably 5-star, and follow us on your chosen podcast listening platform. This allows us to keep creating the best episodes and bringing you the most inspiring guests to help you along your running journey. Thank you.
Gun goes off. We're now into the race. How are you thinking about your fueling strategy around seeing any family and friends that are coming to support you, breaking up the race into chunks, and then the final one we'll come on to will be pacing. But let's start off with fueling. What is your go-to fueling plan?
So I try to have a gel every 20 to 30 minutes. And again, it is really personal and it's something that you should have practiced in all your long training runs, nothing new on race day. But I have 30 grams of carbs in my gels. And I have one every 5K. I will say my marathon PB is the race in which I consumed the most amount of carbs I ever had in a race. And I think that is a sign that, definitely take on the carbs, even if you feel like you don't need them at the time, because also they take a while to kick in. So even if your stomach is feeling like, I can't take any more carbs in, you won't regret having them early so that you don't flag later on in the race.
And in practice, are you having an alarm on your, like an alert on your watch? Are you waiting till you see the 5K marker, the 10K marker? Like, what do you actually do so that you don't just get lost in the vibes? You're crossing the bridges and you realise, oh, I am behind on my plan.
Yeah, I do see people putting the alerts on their watch, which I think is a really good idea. I use the times in which I'm taking a gel as like checkpoints. So it's really unlikely that I'm going to forget doing it. I almost look forward to each next gel point so that I can have a little refuel.
And are these the same points that you've written on your arm to check in with the watch? And okay, so that's quite a clever way to multitask them together.
Yeah,
Nice.
I nodded there for listeners. Yeah, so when I have my 5K split to my arms, that's also a reminder to have a gel each of those 5Ks, really.
Nice. For me, I have 40-gram carb gels when I'm racing, so then I'll have them slightly less frequently. So for me, I'm having them every 7 kilometers. And I also don't forget, because when it comes on to the pacing, I'm also thinking about pacing and gels in a similar way. Fundamentally, I'll break the race down into 2 halves, of which that's 2 half marathons. And within a half marathon, I'll have 3 gels, one every 7K. So in a marathon, I have one every... I have 6, again, one every 7K. So I'm kind of waiting to get to that 7K marker, get to have a gel. I'm through the next kind of like mental chunk of the race, thinking about it in that way. But I also quite like, personally, knowing that they're out of sync to the 5K markers. So that way I can get the excitement of, I've done 5K. Do a bit of maths in my head, try and work out the pace. Am I ahead? Am I behind? How's that going? Oh, I've done some maths in my head. 2K have gone past gel time. 3K goes past 10K marker. And I think that way I'm never running for more than about 4 or 5K in like one continuous go mentally.
Yeah.
And I think, imagine that we just set off on the start line and there was not a single landmark, not a single thing to think about for 42 kilometers. It would be so hard mentally to keep on going.
Yeah.
But the way I think about it, and I'll tell myself this at the end of a hard training workout, or if you're running around the track, I can do something hard for a minute. I can do something hard for 10 minutes. You know, I've done really hard, boring meetings for an hour. And that, like, as a result, doing the next 4K stint is hard, but it's not the hardest thing you've ever had to do for the next 16 or 15 or 20 minutes. And so I find breaking it into these chunks works, and thinking about the pacing and the fueling as two things that are interconnected can really help break it down as well.
Yeah, just like girl maths, runners maths is very similar. And another way you can break up the race and like look forward to something is definitely knowing where you're going to see your friends and family. And with that, you need to know what side of the road, where exactly they're going to be. And yeah, it's just another checkpoint in your head, which you can get to. I think I just don't worry about how long there is to go. I use those little chunks that you're talking about just to get through the next one, to get to the next checkpoint, to get to the next gel, because you'll start panicking that there's so much further to go. Just one step in front of the other, kilometre by kilometre. You know, the more you run, the less you got to run.
I completely agree. One thing I kind of do, and I don't really think I've actively realised that I do it, but interconnect to the same point, I kind of count down in my gels. So I'll start on the start line. I have 6 gels. I have one on the start line and then one every 7 kilometres. My last gel is at 35K. When I have my last gel, I'm like, oh my God, I've done it. I've done the whole plan. I've had my last gel. I'm now fully fueled up for the last chunk. The race is over. And I'm always like, oh my God, I'm going to have to like savor it in a way. I know it sounds really silly and it won't be like objectively enjoyable because my body will be hurting. But you kind of just like work through your checklist and you're like, oh my God, I've kind of done my to-do list. Ooh, I'm mentally free now. I'm light.
That's so funny. Yeah. Any race I do think like that, other than London, because it's my home city. Like when I'm past like the 32K mark, I'm like, oh, I'm almost home, like home straight now. London, I'm like, I can see the O2 Arena. I know how far away that is. And that is one that drives me insane. I know I've got basically the entire embankment to do. But yeah, that's...
Yeah. Well, I think that it's so much of, everyone knows it, so much of running these big distances is a mental game. And I think as a result, we want to position things in our minds in a positive way. Like you said, like framing the negative energy into positive energy. One of the practical things I think I'm always doing is thinking about what's left to go in relative to what I've done. Because if I've done a big chunk, a little chunk remaining is easy.
Yeah.
But if all you have to do is the chunk ahead, objectively that is hard. But next to a bigger thing, it is now easy. So that's kind of why I think in the same way we say the marathon is the victory lap, you have one run of maybe 200 in your training block, or of 100 in your 1% to go. Like that's it. Or in the same way, when you're in the race and you've got that final 5K to go, you've got a very small, you've got 10% of the race to go, or whatever it's going to be, 12% of the race to go. That's not that long. You've done 88% of the race. You should feel amazingly proud.
Yeah.
And in practice, exactly the same thing what I do when I do an Ironman, where a marathon should be this enormously exhausting thing because you've just been cycling for 5 or 6 hours and been for a swim. But I stand on the start line of the run, and instead I'm like, oh, I'm nearly there, which sounds so silly because you've got a whole marathon to do, but because you've done 3/4 of the race, you're nearly there. And so I think being able to tell yourself that what you've got left to do is easy, it's not easy, but if you can convince yourself a little bit of that, you'll start to believe it. And all you've got to do is keep going for the next minute and the next minute. And before you know it, you cross the finish line and you don't need to keep going anymore.
Yeah. I think it's all mind games. And at the end of the day, it's a privilege to be in a position to make ourselves uncomfortable in a way like doing a marathon. So we've spoken about splitting the race up into chunks. Can you talk us through your pacing strategy and exactly how that changes within those chunks?
Yeah, absolutely. So a marathon is a long way. And as a result, pacing doesn't need to be that complicated. In an ideal world, we want to run the same pace practically through every kilometre. And it would be amazing that we've got our body so well dialed, we know ourselves so well, we're so efficient at pacing that we run every kilometre the same as a well-oiled machine. In reality, it's not that simple. we have to go over ebbs and flows, bumps, twists and turns. We need to go through points where we need the toilet, points where we're feeling great, points where there's someone up the road that we like their outfit and we want to go and inspect it some more, or whatever it's going to be. Like all of these things, the landmarks and the cheers and then the quiet sections. So it's never going to be that perfect. And additionally, it is much less efficient to start off faster and slow down than it is to start off a little bit slower, maintain or speed up. So with that in mind, the recommendation would be to have a really good idea of the pace that we're aiming and we think we can sustain throughout. And then I would suggest that that is your pace limit for the first half. Yeah. With a view that, imagine, and for me, still a bit of training to be done when we're recording this now, but I might be thinking about running at, let's say, a 3-minute 45-second per kilometre. Which means in practice, I'm probably going to run between a 3:40 and a 3:50 pace. But I'll make sure that for that first half, I don't want to see a kilometre faster than 3:45. They'll flash up on my wrist every 1 kilometre. And if any are too fast, I'll calm myself down. Yeah. And I'll also, at all times, because of the way I program my watch, be able to see my average pace of that kilometre. So I know that 500 metres into the next kilometre, am I behaving or not? Do I need to slow down immediately? Yeah. So I'm thinking about that all the way through that first half. Sticking to my fueling plan. And now I'm halfway. I've just had my 4th gel. One on the start line. So I'm now on my 4th gel. And I'm still going to stick to that. I'm going to check in with my body, see how I'm feeling. And I might allow myself to speed up by 1 or 2 seconds, let's say. But I'm really looking until I get to around the 30 or the 32 kilometre mark. Because at that point, you're close enough to the finish to really know how it's going to go. Because if you can run a marathon, you can definitely run a half marathon. So at the half marathon point, you're going to feel okay. If it's all going to go to plan, you're going to run a great marathon, you're going to feel okay at halfway. So don't get carried away. Stay within yourself. Stick to that limit, maybe right up against the limit. Keep doing your fueling right. Look out for your supporters and get to the 30, 32 kilometre mark. Or it's about the 20-mile mark. And the reason why we say that is that's also where the wall is known to be. You want to get to the wall and fly right through it, We get to that. You're feeling good. You're sticking to your fueling. And if you feel great and you feel like you've got energy in reserve, dial it up a little bit. But only 2, 3, 4 seconds a kilometre. Do that for 1. Do that for 2. How do you feel? And hopefully you're feeling great because you're now even close to the finish line. You're starting to be proud of yourself, starting to imagine what it's going to feel like crossing the line. And only if you feel electric should you speed up a little bit further than that. And the ideal is that you're just always judging how much you have in the tank to run up against it so that you squeeze every last ounce of performance out, but you never go past it, that you do a fast kilometre in 37 and a slow kilometre in 38. So it's just a question of staying calm, really wait, get to that point, and then squeeze out. It's almost like kind of squeezing out water out of a wet towel. Yeah. And as you're going down the finish line, you're hopefully sprinting your heart out, knowing that you don't need to have anything left in reserve. Yeah. What about you? How do you think about your pacing?
Well, from personal experience, any race that hasn't gone well for me, I can put down to going out too fast. I've tried to bank time in previous races. It genuinely doesn't work. I get a really good positive reinforcement when I pick up the pace in the second half and overtake people. That's really good for my confidence, my staying mentally strong. That's really good for me. So I do try to negative split a race. If that's not possible, negative split the effort. Increase your effort the second half, even if your pace doesn't increase. So everything you said, really valuable, really practical. And I think I come at this with the same essence, but a more crystally, airy-fairy, emotional way, where I always go through legs, head, heart. So I run the first 10K to halfway with my legs, get into a rhythm. I want to be not comfortable because it still is hard, but I don't want to be overdoing it. I don't want to get caught up in the nerves, the anticipation, get overexcited. The next third with my head, so that's the halfway to about 30K. That's when it's going to get really mentally tough and you just want to stay engaged, remember your why. That's the mentally tough bit. And the last bit with your heart, and as you say, that's when you squeeze, that's when you get everything out of yourself, that's when the party really starts and you've got to really get going and you've got to leave it all out there. So legs, head, heart.
Nice. I mean, it does get me very excited thinking about it. And while you guys might be listening to this a day or a few days before the race, we've still got a long way to go, but it is exciting, and
Yeah.
we've also got to use that to fuel ourselves in every step of the way.
Yeah. So you've crossed the finish line, you're feeling amazing, probably really overwhelmed, really emotional, in disbelief of what you've just achieved. What is next?
Well, you probably will feel amazing and awful at the same time, and that's okay, and that is fine. I think we need to regroup with family. We need to get warm clothes on, and we need to think about getting some fuel in the body. Partly because you're exhausted and depleted, but also it's going to help as you think about the recovery and what comes next. In practice, it's going to take a while to feel normal again, and we don't need to be recovering, getting ready for training a few days later. So have something that you enjoy, have something that you're going to savor and it's going to feel amazing. But do try and make sure that we're thinking about kind of a few things. Hydrating, so taking on liquids. We want to take on carbs, get some sugar back in the body because we just used it all up. And then also get some protein to kickstart recovery. But simple things like doing practically all of these nice foods come with this combination. Doing some chocolate milk is doing such a good go-to. Going and having a burger's going to have some protein and the bread's going to have some carbs. So it doesn't need to be that complicated. Whatever you're excited about, but just make sure that you don't get to the finish line, feel a bit sick from having loads of gels and then have nothing. So take on some fuel, hydrate, wrap up warm. Your body's also exhausted, so it's going to have not much energy left to keep your body warm, and that's even if you're in a hot place. Go and celebrate and enjoy it in the way that you would and should. One of the things that I know I've done, and so many of my friends have done, is that we'll go and enjoy being in a hot place. Somehow it always seems to be the case at marathon, maybe because they're scheduled to be on times where it's less likely to rain to make the races go well for the organisers, but it normally feels like the sun comes out and you go get sunburnt. So, I mean, I actually put sun cream on normally before the big races, but make sure you got some sun cream on, make sure you're layered up, and also know where you're going to go. Just like we said, we want to know where we're going to meet up with our family and friends. Have a table booked somewhere so you can go and have a big pizza feast or whatever it's going to be. Just have all of that planned out. So that you can just relax and enjoy it.
Yeah, I am so excited for that feeling once the race is done and you were able to celebrate. Do you have one piece of actionable advice once the race is over?
Yeah, so final thing for me would be to think about the recovery, both the day of and the days that follow. So after a good workout, June would always recommend a good cool down and a good stretch. You've probably forgotten to do this. You've been overwhelmed and swept up in the emotions. You've gone and fueled and celebrated and you're now home a few hours later. I would say that you don't need to go and do a long, extensive stretch. Your body's so weak and tired from what you've just put it through that you're actually probably going to do more harm than good by doing a meaningfully longer stretch. Loosen yourself up, go and have a nice warm shower, a bath, and maybe a very gentle stretch, but don't feel like you need to do a longer stretch routine, given that you're more likely to go and strain something because you've really pushed your body right up to that limit. And then beyond that, we want to think about the days that come. Your body has now been through such an ordeal that the risk of injury that follows in the week or few weeks that come after is going to be much greater. And as a result, we want to really make sure that we minimize the risk of injury on an ongoing basis by staying calm and really avoiding anything strenuous and intense for that immediate time period afterwards. You want to get out, you want to walk, you want to do low intense movements, something like a gentle cross train a few days later, a swim, a cycle, those types of things, gradually introducing some mobility again on the days that follow when your body feels ready. And we really don't need to be going out for a run for a good few days later, but do go check out our post-race recovery plans and we will help guide you back to full fitness so that you can get back to doing the thing you love. And one of the things I just think is so important is that we want to get back to loving running, and these habits that we've built over the last few months of training, we want to try and keep into that healthy ongoing lifestyle. But a great way to do that is actually to take a few days out, take a week, don't go running, that you're then really excited to come back to this great habit, this great thing that you're loving. And that's the way to make it this sustainable thing forever. So that one, we're avoiding injury, but we're also mentally excited to put our running shoes back on when the body is ready.
Yeah, I think that's it. Marathons are such a big deal, both mentally and physically, and takes so much out of you. And if you don't feel like, diving straight back into training, that's okay. I think recovery for everyone is so personal. But yeah, that's it. That's as simple as it gets. But we wish everybody at home the biggest luck for whatever race you've got planned. And don't forget, you can download our pre-race checklist and our guides to racing, and we'll link them in the description of this episode.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening. We hope that you enjoyed and got some value from listening to us talk along through our routines. Let us know what you like to do to get the very best out of your race. And thank you for listening.
Before you go, we've got something very exciting to share. We have launched our limited edition Lululemon Runner collection, Your Best Yet.
It's a 10-piece London capsule built for every runner, for every mile, from those training miles through to race day. Designed for both men and women, it performs both on the run and for long after you've finished.
It's available now in the Lululemon London Regent Street store or online in the US and UK.
It's a limited drop, so when it's gone, it's gone.